Shut up, you don't talk to me like that.
I cannot stop working hard to provide for my family because of your dog.
Who would have patience for such stubbornness and irresponsibility?
Our relationship was anything but harmonic because of you, you know that.
Even if I was rude, you very well deserved it.
I would gladly do that for the rest of my life.
I don't care about your intentions. It is done.
This is what we are going to find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Solve and Resolve Show, the groundbreaking show that brings adversaries face to face in an extraordinary journey towards resolution and understanding. In a world where conflict is sometimes inevitable, we have created this platform to work as a common ground and problem solver for our guest conflicts. My name is Roger and I am your host. Do you want to know how it works? Let me show you. So, each show we have a pair of guests that come to the show to expose and discuss about a conflict between them, and we have the responsibility to help them to solve that issue. The topic of the issue can vary as well as the level of complexity, and today, the struggle between our two guests consists on the following sentence. Put it on the screen, please. My neighbor poisoned my dog. Yes, you heard that right. One of our guests suspects that the other guest has poisoned his or her dog. We still don't know who it is. And by the end of the show, everything about what happened will be clear. With our help, hopefully a solution will be found. So, without further delay, let me introduce you to my guests for today. Are you ready? On my right hand, we have Mrs. Yuna Usona, 56-year-old full-time accountant. And on my left hand, we have Mr. Kiami Endala, 35-year-old truck driver. So, I invite you to embark with us on this mission to bring a solution and harmony back between our guests. Mrs. Yuna and Mr. Kiami. Between the both of you, who called us to bring this issue in order to be resolved here on stage?
I did, Roger.
So, Mrs. Yuna, is it you who think that Mr. Kiami has poisoned your dog? Or it's the other way around?
Yes, this man has poisoned my dog.
Can you tell us more about what happened?
My dog Nina is very active and friendly with anybody. She's always moving and easily attracted by anything. Sometimes if I get distracted, she would jump out of the window and run to greet the neighbors if she hears them arriving after work. And I don't have any problem with her greeting them, but the real problem started a month ago when Mr. Kiami, that usually never brings his trucks home to fix, out of nothing decided to bringing them home. And he could very well fix them inside his front yard, but I don't why he insists to fix them outside in front his gates that are very close to my gates and the other neighbors on his right.
It's not like that.
Leaving all those toxic chemicals, substances, including diesel on the ground, and sometimes in small recipients, ignoring the risks it brings for animals and children that pass by. Yesterday I had day off from work. I had an emergency call from a friend. I might have forgotten the window open, and when I came back I found my Nina laying down in front of his gates full of diesel on the ground. She was not reacting anymore. I had to rush her to the veterinarian.
I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Yuna. Don't forget that in few minutes we will have online the doctor that has the full diagnosis of Nina, the dog we are waiting for news about. Unfortunately, we still have no information about how she is doing. And the worst is we also don't know if Nina still lives after the intoxication. We really hope she lives. Such beautiful dog, deserves to live for many more years. We really hope so. Mr. Kiami, after what Mrs. Yuna just said, what is your version of what happened to Nina?
Roger, first of all, I want to clarify something that I think Mr. Yuna was not quite assertive about.
What are you insinuating?
Nothing!
Are you calling me a liar?
No, I'm calling you Mrs. Yuna. Did you hear me calling you a liar?
Mrs. Yuna and Mr. Kiami, please, let's control ourselves. Mr. Kiami, please continue.
As I was saying, I am new in that neighborhood. I moved in with my wife and my 2 little kids only 2 months ago. Mrs. Yuna said that out of nothing I decided to bring the trucks to fix at home as if it was a dream come true, but it is not that way. Our mechanic had an accident, and as I also have some experience with mechanics, I'm taking his place to keep the company moving. We have contracts and deadlines to meet. I work 12 hours some days to keep the trunks rolling on the road. If I don't finish, I have to bring the truck home to finish fixing it because I need to leave space for other companies' truck when our time is up. But it's not every day.
Mrs. Yuna mentioned about you fixing the trucks inside in your front yard. Would you consider that?
No, that's foolishness, Roger. That's also where I think Mrs. Yuna was not assertive in her allegations. She knows very well the size of my yard. The trucks don't fit inside.
The problem is also that when he arrives, he is all dirty and covered by diesel and those chemicals they work with. And if I am distracted, Nina jumps over the windows and runs to him, licking all that dirty in his body, and he doesn't push her away.
That's not true. I always gentilely try to push her away. You know your dog doesn't stay still.
If you know there's a lot of chances she will run to you, why don't you take a bath at work and come clean? Roger, you should see the way he arrives, unrecognizable.
I see you're trying to make me feel bad about my work. Let me tell you that I'm proud of myself coming home that way. If arriving dirty is the price to keep my family clean, I would gladly do that for the rest of my life.
Mrs. Yuna and Mr. Kayami, let's focus on the main issue, please.
Just for you to know, she doesn't have to change a bit of what she is because of you. We were very quiet before you arrived.
If you are that worried about your dog coming to greet me, why don't you lock her up when I arrive?
Shut up! You don't talk to me like that!
Mrs. Yuna, I will ask you to get back to your place, please.
I would never limit her freedom for an ignorant and disrespectful man like you. She was free before you arrived, and she will always be free. With you or without you, you are the one that needs to change.
I know you're worried about the way I come home, but the fact that your dog runs to me is out of my control. I cannot stop working hard to provide for my family because of your dog. Your dog is your responsibility. Now, what I can never tolerate is Mrs. Yuna hitting my gates with a stone, get inside my house and insult me in front of my wife and kids, calling me names because of something she's not being able to control.
Mrs. Yuna, did you break into Mr. Kiyami's house before the incident with Nina?
The other neighbors didn't have the courage to do, so I did it. Someone should do. I needed to tell some truths on his face, and he knows I did that not primarily for the way he comes home, but because he is leaving his diesel exposed all over the ground in front of his gates for days.
You said for days? Please, stop lying.
I said, don't call me liar, boy, respect me.
Mr. Kayami, do you usually leave the rest of those chemical substances exposed in front of your gates? If yes, for how long?
Roger, as I said, I am working long hours. By the time I finish, I am exhausted, and sometimes I don't have the strength to clean that place, but I clean on the next day.
So why don't you call your wife and kids to clean your mess?
No, don't bring my wife and kids into this.
It's just a reasonable question, so let me see if I understand it right. You don't let you wife neither you kids touch those toxic things, but you leave them exposed for other kids and animal, is that?
Roger, please tell her to take my wife and kids out of this. It's pissing me off.
Sometimes he himself puts a mask on when he is working with those gas and chemicals, but at the end he leaves all over the ground. Why?
Mr. Kiyami, do you know how toxic, harmful, and even fatal those chemicals are if ingested? Not only for animals, but for humans too?
Well, I know, but it's not like I left there in purpose to cause harm to whoever or whatever it is.
I don't care about your intentions. Intentionally or unintentionally, it is done. Because of your ignorance and irresponsibility, I don't even know if my Nina is alive.
Mr. Kiyami, we understand it was not your intention to cause any harm. However, what I want to encourage you to always prevent, because remediating most of the times costs a lot more than the price it takes to prevent. I bet you would like to stay home enjoying your time with your family now. But we are here, in front of the world, trying to remediate what was not intentionally done. And this advice is also valid for those watching us at home. Always look around to make sure everything is where it needs to be and everybody is safe.
I told him the exact same thing, but he was denying, thinking I had something personal against him.
Are you sure you talked to me in that exact way? Roger, do you think that someone completely out of her mind, hitting my gates with a stone, would talk to me the way you just did? Come on!
Then tell me, how did I say it?
It's very easy to forget when you're the one being rude, isn't it?
Even if I was rude, you very well deserved it, because we told you 1,000 times to be careful and always clean up your mess, but you wouldn't listen. Who would have patience for such stubbornness and irresponsibility?
Mrs. Yuna, how was your relationship with Mr. Kiami before he started bringing his trucks home to fix? Was everything okay between you two?
It was just like with any other neighbor. We lived in perfect harmony.
Mrs. Yana, honestly, I almost called you liar again. Our relationship was anything but harmonic because of you, you know that.
Why would you say that, Mr. Kiami?
When I get home after work, my wife constantly tells me about Mrs. Yuna's complaints. One day, she would complain about my kids playing in my own yard, sometimes about the way we throw the trash away, even about the time we get back home if we arrive late at night. Saying things like we came very late last night, my car made her lose sleep, and the best thing she likes to do is to compare us with the previous neighbor. Why all of that?
So in revenge you tried to kill my dog, is that?
This is what we are going to find out.
Mrs. Yuna, please let's avoid direct accusation for now, because it is time to connect the doctor that has all the answer we are longing for. We are all anxious to know, how is Nina doing now? Did it survive the intoxication? And before that, I want to hear from you, Mr. Yuna. How did you feel yesterday? Coming home and finding Nina, your dog laying down at Mr. Kiami's front gates full of diesel, not responding. How did you feel that moment?
Roger, I was devastated. I'm divorced and all my sons are grown, they have their own places. Nina is my only and best company now. She's like a daughter I never had. I give her love every day. And in return, she puts a big smile on my face, brings joy to my days, and even makes me forget my loneliness. I just love her so much. When I saw her laying down, intoxicated, dying, I felt like the world fell down on my shoulders, a pain I couldn't bear. I couldn't breathe for some seconds, but I had to find courage, so I rushed her to the veterinarian to save her life if she still have any. And now I'm here, desperate and hoping she is alive.
We are also really hoping to hear the doctor say that Nina is fine and will make it. We really do. Mr. Kiami, when you saw the dog laying down on the ground in front of your gates, how did you feel? What came into your mind?
I had a hard time believing that it actually happened. I had finished fixing by 4 p.m. I was starving. I said, get me inside and eat. After that, I'll come back and clean the mess. After eating, I was even more exhausted. I ended up postponing it for the next day. 1 hour after I heard someone hitting on my gates and screaming very loud, I told my wife and kids to hide in the room. I came out and I saw Mrs. Yuna crying, trying to reanimate the dog. I noticed I had left a diesel recipient there. Mrs. Yuna and I drove the dog to the veterinarian immediately. The dog is innocent, doesn't deserve to pass through this. I could feel by the way she dances when she sees me that her love is genuine, although she doesn't know me that well yet, and thinking that she might be between life and death breaks me even more. I pray she gets out of it, safe and well. Maybe if I just didn't postpone cleaning that mess, we wouldn't be here today.
I see you're feeling guilty about this incident.
Honestly, yes, deep inside, I know I could do better. I should have been more careful, and I am sorry for that.
Mrs. Yuna, what do you think about Mr. Kiami's declaration?
Roger, all I can say is that I need time to process all of this, and my focus is on Nina right now.
And yes, everyone's focus is on Nina's diagnosis right now. I see people on the audience crossing fingers. Yes, the tension is real here in the studio, because it's not just about a dog, it's about a friend and loving creature that conquered all of us with just one picture. I heard from my producer that the doctor is now online with us. Put him on the screen, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you Dr. Wendy Luzola. Good evening, Dr. Wendy, and thank you for accepting the invitation to join us.
Good evening, Roger. Good evening, Imaginario Pix Studio, and everyone watching us from home. Thank you for the invitation to contribute for the solution in the conflict between Mrs. Yuna and Mr. Kiami.
It's a pleasure to have you on the other side of the screen.
Thank you.
Well, doctor, I'm going straight to the question everybody wants the answer. How is Nina right now? Was it possible to save her life? If you want to watch the second part of this episode, please type Part 2 in the comment section. I will upload it for you. And if you like this episode, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. God bless you.